テレ東シリーズでお伝えしている欧州情勢は複雑怪奇第4弾。フィナンシャルタイムズで長年編集のトップを務める名物編集長がイギリスのトランプと言われるボリス・ジョンソン新首相を徹底分析しました。
Can Mr. Johnson change this situation, do you think?
He believes that he can change because he is a new figure and he is very eloquent. He's a bit eccentric. He has his blonde hair and his Etonian Oxford accent and all these things. He's an ex-journalist, so he talks very well, but he still has the basic problem to resolve, which is Brexit. And that is still the problem which has existed since the British people voted very narrowly in June 2016 to leave the European Union.
So what kind of impact Mr. Boris Johnson or Johnson's administration deliver?
Well, unfortunately, everything still turns around Brexit because that's our most important, and Britain's most important economic relationship. So unless we get this right and we leave, and we're due to leave, there's a deadline of October the 31st by which we're supposed to finally leave, then Mr. Johnson has to negotiate that. There is a withdrawal deal on the table, Mrs. May's deal. He's seeking to amend it in certain ways. But unless he gets this right and there's an orderly withdrawal, nothing will happen. Now, let me just say one thing. We could leave without a deal. That is very dangerous. Mr. Johnson says he's willing to contemplate that. If he does, then we're going to have to see a cut in interest rates, a relaxation of fiscal policy, which will have consequences in the markets. On the other hand, if there's an orderly deal, I believe a lot of money would come back into the UK.
So will the UK complete Brexit until the end of October?
Nobody knows for sure what is going to happen. We do know that the Parliament, the House of Commons, recently voted to prevent us crashing out with no deal, but there's still a risk of this. So honestly, I think there's a possibility of another extension, short, but on balance, I think that it is impossible to guess. So we have this Brexit drama is likely to continue until 5 minutes to midnight on October the 31st.
How high do you estimate the possibility of a no deal so far?
I would say that the possibility of a no deal has risen in recent weeks. Now, given they've said we must leave by October the 31st, they've boxed themselves in. They've given themselves less room for manoeuvre, and therefore the risk has risen.
Yeah. So will the UK or EU choose to postpone the deadline again?
It is possible that if they are near to a deal, that there could be a technical extension. But just prolonging the agony, so to speak, I don't think anybody wants that. I don't think the Europeans want it, and I don't think Boris Johnson wants it. So I think this is a real game of chicken between now and October the 31st, and that's not a lot of time.
So, as you pointed, the situation in the Parliament, Boris Johnson will have not changed. So, will Mr. Johnson call snap election?
I don't believe that Mr. Johnson will deliberately call a snap general election. Remember, we've had one in 2015 and we had one in 2017. So another one, this is unusual, not anything like this for 40 years. However, if Mr. Johnson can't force through no deal, and then there are defections from the Conservative MPs and former ministers, he may be obliged to call a general election. So I would say that the chances of a general election have gone up. He could then go to the people and say, I want to have a no deal. And he may say, I'm willing to have another referendum. And I think I can win it.
And do you think that Mr. Johnson will be able to hold on to the position of the Prime Minister at least until the Olympic Games in Tokyo 2020?
He is a showman. He would love the occasion. He'd love to come to Japan as the British Prime Minister. But there is a risk that he won't make it.
So, of course, he will be trying to hold on to the position.
Well, I think there are other reasons apart from the Tokyo Olympics that he'll want to hold on his position. But yes, he does. He's waited for this. He's wanted to be Prime Minister since he was 5 years old.
Yes. And let's move on to the next topic. In an exclusive interview you conducted in Kremlin, the Russian President Putin said that the liberalism has become obsolete. How do you see the future of the liberal idea under pressure from leaders like Putin, Xi, and Trump?
The exclusive interview which I conducted in Moscow, in the Kremlin, with President Putin for more than an hour and a half, went on till after midnight. And the climax was indeed what he said about liberalism. He described it as a spent ideological force, obsolete, as you say. I don't believe that's true. I think Mr. Putin is defining liberalism very narrowly.
Yeah.
He was pointing out the controversies over immigration in Europe and in the States, in the United States. He was also talking about multiculturalism, which he doesn't like. He likes nationalism. I believe that Mr. Putin is wrong because even if democracies are struggling in the advanced economies, the idea of the rule of law, of free speech, free media, an independent press, that is liberalism. And that still exists in the United States, in Germany, in France, and in the UK, and by the way, in Japan.
So I think many leaders in the world has been worried to deal with how to deal with Mr. President Trump. So in this contrast, I can say Mr. Abe and Trump create a good relationship. How do you see the relationship between the two leaders?
I believe that, as with other leaders, the personal relationship between Mr. Abe and Mr. Trump is very good. And I know, and I've interviewed Mr. Abe several times, he has invested a great deal of time and effort in building a personal relationship with Mr. Trump. The question is, how much return has he got on his investment? And I would suggest it's reasonable, but it's not an excellent return because Mr. Trump has imposed tariffs on Japan. He's also made Japan uncomfortable with his overtures on North Korea. And he is a unilateralist. So, on the other hand, Mr. Abe is an experienced leader, and it's good that he is, so to speak, the Trump whisperer. He whispers in his ear, and he says him, and he has some influence in that respect.
So, such good relationship, is this good relationship sustainable, do you think?
Well, that depends on Mr. Trump. I mean, clearly, the aggressive moves on trade, the tariffs, are hurting the world economy. We've seen that. It may well be that interest rates are further cut by the Federal Reserve and maybe even the European Central Bank. And that's a result of this trade war with Japan. Many people, he's introduced a great deal of uncertainty. There's also tensions with Iran in the Gulf over Iran's nuclear program. America is putting enormous pressure on its allies with regard to Iran. So in that respect, things are quite difficult.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.